My name is Blanca Barajas. I'm 15 years old. The school I go to is Edison High, and the name of my documentary is Our Disappearing Wetlands. I was inspired to create this documentary because one of my siblings' history professors had slightly mentioned this to me, and it sparked an interest. I just wanted to know more and more about it because I had never really heard about it before. And I really wanted to spread more information about how there's not enough information out there about the disappearing wetlands of the Central Valley. I hope the audience learns that there was once a really rich land here of the wetlands that had a lot of different species and so on, and that it's no longer here because of causes like infrastructure, farmlands, and so on.
Our future is at stake. Over the years, an area within California has been taken advantage of: California's Central Valley's wetlands. This area used to be covered in wetlands, but now it is covered with infrastructure such as cities and farmlands. Unfortunately, the amount of water and the conditions of our ecosystem has been declining. However, there is still a chance to restore the wetlands, and by providing coverage, we can learn to prevent future consequences. My name is Blanca Barajas. This is my film, Our Disappearing Wetlands, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Greg Reese. I'm the staff hydrologist with the Bay Institute. An estuary is where saltwater and freshwater mix. So you have the freshwater coming down to the ocean, mixing with the saltwater and creating unique habitats for unique species. So there's species like Delta smelt that live nowhere else in the world. You have species like longfin smelt, which do live elsewhere, but are pretty limited and also endangered. And so you have a lot of fish species that live in that area and migrate through that area, like salmon, that migrate up to the upper watershed. And they all depend on that ecosystem. And there's a lot of birds, a lot of mammals, a lot of plants. I couldn't tell you how many endangered species there are in the system, but there are a lot. And so it's very important for fish and wildlife, for ecosystem function, for a lot of beneficial uses people have for water.
My name is Paul Gilmore, and I teach history at Fresno City College, and I teach U.S. history and history of California, but probably most significantly for this project, I teach a course called the History of Water, History of California Infrastructure, Rails, Water, and Power. And I did a whole long research trip on that, and water is a big part of the story of California infrastructure. If we're talking about the wetlands in California over the last 150 years, this is a human-made environment, and the disappearance of those wetlands has been a conscious act of people to try to turn those places into farms and cities. It used to be seen that destroying those wetlands was a great progressive step. That here what we're doing is we're improving the land. That was even the term that was used. We need to improve the land. We need to drain the swamps and turn it into something useful. The assumption was that the incredible work that wetlands do was not useful to human beings.
We have taken advantage of the natural resources and work that these wetlands do. Instead of working around nature and letting it have its space, there has been multiple projects done to move the rivers to accommodate cities and agriculture. The State Water Project was done to move the Kings River, and as a result of that, the largest body of water west of the Mississippi River disappeared.
Have you heard of Tulare Lake? There used to be a Tulare Lake. A big, huge lake just south of here, about 50 miles south of here, basically between Bakersfield and Fresno, in the middle of the valley. There was a lake that was 40 miles across, very shallow, and on dry years it would be small, but in wet years it would be huge. Now all of that is gone. Tulare Lake was for years and years giant cotton fields. Now it's pistachios and almonds, and who knows what 20 years from now will bring, but it won't bring Tulare Lake, I don't think. Now, humans have always shaped their environment. Native Californians shaped their environment here through massive burning and so on. Humans have always shaped their environment. But on the level that we've been doing it for 100 years, the last 100 years, and even really the last 50 years, we haven't seen anything like this in the history of humanity. I would argue that we have to engage in more artificial fixing of problems that wetlands used to solve. First of all, if we like the idea of enormous amounts of and an enormous variety of vegetation and animal life, we're going to have to plant it ourselves. We're going to have to build it ourselves if we've already gotten rid of what nature does. I do history, and a lot of times people don't think of that as a power tool in that way. And maybe it isn't as much. Maybe it isn't. Maybe history isn't as important as, let's say, the sciences in describing and talking about what needs to be done with wetlands, but an understanding of the forces that got rid of the wetlands, an understanding of the historical process by which that happened, is, I think, really important for then applying the scientific knowledge that we have so that we can make things better for us in the future.
One of the biggest things that can be done is to give rivers more room and have a buffer along the rivers, get the farmland away from the river edge so that the river can actually get its natural flows, and not the natural flows, but the flows that are available and the flood flows in the wintertime and in the spring. And those flows will seep out of the river. They'll restore wetlands along the river, especially if work is done to restore that land, and if it used to be farms, to take down the levees or set back the levees. Farmland has taken up so much space in the Central Valley that it really does require giving some of that space back if we're going to restore a lot of wetland area. It really is generational work, though. I think it takes a long time. And it's hard to say for sure. For my whole career, I've been working in water, and everything goes really slow when it comes to public policy and government regulation. It's important work to get things to go back more to the way they used to be so we can have a healthy ecosystem, healthy rivers, healthy bay and delta.
It's amazing what humans have done to this valley. Turned it into one giant machine.